Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the start of another reading vlog. It is currently the start of Valentine's Day week, so in the spirit of the upcoming holiday and February just being the month of love, I wanted to do a reading vlog where I read only romances for the week, but not just any romances. The books I have selected to read this week all take place on Valentine's Day, or the premise is about Valentine's Day. So let me tell you all about the 3 books that I have picked out to read this week. The first book is on KU, so I'll be reading it on my Kindle, and that is Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. I've heard so many good things about this book and I've been wanting to read it for so long. So when I found out the premise is around Valentine's Day, I decided to save it for this time of year. This book is definitely going to be on the heavier, more emotional side and lots of trigger warnings from what I understand about it. So definitely search them up before picking this one up. But this one is about this couple who meet on the rooftop of their school because they are both wanting to jump from the roof and end their lives. They're both struggling with a lot of mental health issues. So they end up talking each other out of it, and they come to this pact that they're going to meet up on the rooftop every year on Valentine's Day to kind of check on one another. On the 4th Valentine's Day they meet up. The guy in the couple ends up breaking his part of the deal and does end up ending his life. So from there, the girl in the couple ends up meeting this guy's brother, and a relationship between the two of them forms, and I'm sure they're going to bond over their shared grief of the same person. So like I said, a lot of heavy topics. It sounds like it's going to be intense. This one's also a really long one. It's like 700 something pages, so it might take me a bit to get through, but like I said, I've heard wonderful things about this book, so I'm definitely looking forward to reading it. The next book I'll be reading is on the lighter side. This is The Do-Over by Lynn. This is a YA romance that follows a time loop Groundhog Day type of plot. Our main character is reliving Valentine's Day over and over, and I think on this Valentine's Day she catches her boyfriend cheating on her. So hopefully this book has a happy ending. I think that it does. But I did read Accidentally Amy last fall by Lynn, and I was not a fan of that book. I picked it up also for seasonal reasons. I read it in the fall because the premise involved pumpkin spice lattes, and unfortunately ended up giving that book 1 star, but it's one that I wasn't judging super harshly because it was like a first draft self-published kind of situation. So I definitely want to give Lynn another chance, and I've heard that YA is more her strong suit, so I'm hoping to love this one. I think it sounds super cute. And the last book I will be reading for this vlog is The No-Show by Beth. This one is about 3 women who all get stood up by the same guy on Valentine's Day. I've heard very mixed reviews about this book. I've seen it on some people's favorites of the year list from last year, but I've also heard people like absolutely despise this book. I think there's a little twist at the end, so depending on whether or not you like the twist, I think kind of determines if you love or hate this book. So we'll have to see. Beth is definitely an author I've been wanting to give a try for a while. I know The Flat Share by her is her more popular book. I got that one for Christmas, so I'm excited to give her a try. So these are the 3 books I will be reading for this vlog. I hope you guys enjoy watching, and I will see you guys when I have an update. Hi guys, last night I finished part 1 of Darling Venom. I made it a little bit of the way into part 2. I'm not sure how many parts this book is divided up into since I'm reading it on my Kindle. I haven't really taken a look at the full thing of how it's broken up, but so far part 1 covered pretty much everything that I knew was going to happen in this book and everything that it tells you in the premise of the book. And it focused on Charlotte's relationship with Kellen. Basically, they meet on the roof of their school. They both are contemplating ending their lives and jumping off of the roof, but they make a pact to meet every year on the roof on Valentine's Day to keep each other in check. But of course, on the 4th Valentine's Day, Kellen breaks his part of the pact and he does end his life. And so that's how part 1 ended. It's very heavy and very intense, and I just kind of had to like sit with it for a little bit. But because these characters are kind of like hardened and not super emotional, I feel like I'm processing the grief through Charlotte's point of view. So it's not really reading as like I'm gonna cry, at least in my opinion. Like, it's obviously very heavy and sad and a tragedy, but it's just a different way of like viewing it, since I'm viewing it through Charlotte's perspective, if that makes sense. So now there's definitely been a shift. It looks like part 2 is going to focus on Charlotte's relationship with Kellen's brother Tate, and all Charlotte knows about Tate is what she's heard of him through Kellen, which is only negative things. Kellen hated his brother, so it's going to be interesting because obviously from the synopsis we know that a romance is going to spark between them. So I don't know, I feel like this book, it's interesting because it doesn't spoon feed anything to us, and I feel like I have a lot of questions about why certain characters have done things they're doing or why they are the way they are, and I'm hoping we're going to get answers to them because so far I just have a lot of questions. But Charlotte has now met Tate. Like I said, there's definitely been a shift to the vibe of this book. It feels very different now that we are getting Tate's point of view too, and Charlotte and Tate do not meet on the right note. They get off on a bad foot. Charlotte definitely can see why Kellen hated his brother. So like I said, it's going to be interesting to see where their relationship goes from here, but I'm excited to keep reading. Hi you guys, I am a little over halfway through Darling Venom, and this book is a lot. There's a lot going on. There are a bunch of different subplots and a couple different storylines, and all of the characters are dealing with really intense and heavy things, and not just our main characters, Charlotte and Tate, but also Kellen and Tate's father. Terry is dealing with his own things. Charlotte's sister Leah has her own things she's going through, and it's a lot going on, but I don't feel like it's too much. I feel like it's written really well to where I have a good grasp on everything, and I don't feel overwhelmed by all the different subplots. But I will say, I do think this book is a little bit mismarketed as a romance. I know this was supposed to be a romance reading blog because I fully expected this was solely a romance novel, but I would say that this is a book about grief first and then a romance second. The main focus of the story is definitely on how Charlotte and Tate are grieving Kellen and how the grief manifests itself differently in each of the characters and how they're helping one another overcome this grief. So it's really heavy and intense. It is a lot, but like I said, it's really well written and I'm really enjoying the story. There's a couple of iffy things that have happened, like chapter 34, if you know, you know, I thought was a little weird and unrealistic, but other than that, I'm really liking the story. I feel like it's maybe just a little bit too long. It's kind of dragging right now between the 50 and 60% mark where I am and getting slightly repetitive, but I'm still really liking it. And at the point I am now, I would recommend it 100% because I think it is a really great novel and really well written too. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here. And I'm honestly hoping the romance aspect to the story picks up because those are some of my favorite bits, but it's just very much a subplot of romance. You guys, I just finished Darling Venom. It was so good. There was this unexpected little twist at the end that I did not see coming at all, but it just tied everything together so perfectly. It made so much sense. I really loved the book. I would highly recommend it. Definitely check trigger warnings because it was very heavy, but I really loved it. I feel like I didn't 1000% connect with the characters. There were just a couple things I was kind of iffy on, and it dragged just the tiniest bit in a few places, but I really loved it overall. I thought it was so good. Also, the writing was amazing. I have to share some of the quotes that I highlighted because nearly every page in this book was like so quotable. Okay, I loved this quote so much. It perfectly describes how Charlie and Tate's relationship was. We were in the same book, just stuck in different chapters. Would we ever reach the same page? And then this other one, they say love is 10% falling and 90% picking yourself back up. What they never tell you is how quick that 10% passes and how long that 90% lasts. It was just so good. I'm so happy that I loved it. I also did start the no-show last night. I read a good bit yesterday and into today as well. I'm already on page 105, so I thought I would share my initial thoughts on this book as well as how I'm feeling now. At first, this book isn't really what I thought it would be. I kind of thought we would get more backstory leading up to this Valentine's Day and these 3 dates where he stands all these women up. I almost kind of pictured like all 3 women in the same restaurant at different tables, and it's like a Mrs. Doubtfire situation where he's like going to the bathroom to change and then going to one woman's table and then the next and the next and like having all these excuses, but it really wasn't like that at all. I also thought that the dates wouldn't happen until like the 50% mark or so, and it would like be all this build up to Valentine's Day, and then the last half of the book would be the aftermath of that. But the first 20 pages is all 3 women and their Valentine's Day date and being stood up by this man, Joseph Carter. And it honestly took me a little bit to get into the story, but now I'm hooked. I'm really into the mystery aspect of this book. This man, Joseph Carter, I hate him so much. I don't understand why he's doing this to these poor women. I love each of them. They're all so distinct, but I love all of their stories so much. And I just really need to know like why he's doing this, what his motive is. And it's interesting because his relationship with each of these women is so different too. So we have Miranda. I would say he and Miranda's relationship is the most like traditional coupley boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. They probably have the most romantic feelings towards one another. And then we have Siobhan, who it's more like a hookup, sexual, friends with benefits type of relationship where they only see each other when they're in the same city. And then we have Jane, who he just has a friendship relationship with, but Jane's been lying to her coworkers that she has a boyfriend when she really doesn't. So there's this work event where she needs a date and she ends up asking Joseph, and he ends up standing her up, which is the Valentine's Day date that he ghosted her on. So it's interesting that all 3 of these relationships are different. I have a lot of questions. Like I said, I just want to know why he is doing this. And at first it took me a bit, like I said, to get into the story, and now I'm really invested and I just need to know because I do not like Joseph Carter. We've been up for way too long, but I don't wanna come down. You guys, I'm a little over halfway through the no-show and I am loving this book so much. I think I mentioned in my first update that it was kind of slow to start and it did take me a little bit to get into, but now I'm so hooked. I'm low-key obsessed with it. It's making me even more excited to pick up the flat share because I was not expecting to love this book as much as I am, and it's just so good. I love the writing. It's very classic British romantic drama. It kind of reminds me of like a Josie Silver book or a Jenny Bayliss book. It's just very like cozy and inviting to read, but it also has a lot of depth to it. So I'm just loving it. I feel like I've figured out one of the women's stories. We're getting all these little hints in Jane's story that something happened in her past that's kind of popping up in present day, and I think I've put 2 and 2 together as far as her part of the story goes. But the other 2 women, Miranda and Siobhan, I just have no idea what's going to happen with their parts of the story, so I'm really excited to keep reading. This book is so hard to put down, but I just wanted to pop on and update you guys really quick, and I'll probably update again once I have finished this book. You guys, last night I finished the no-show. This was so freaking good. I absolutely loved it. The ending was so clever, so smart. It tied everything up in the most perfect bow. By the time the ending hits, you're like, oh my god, how did I overlook that before? It was just so good. Like, am I gonna give this 5 stars? I honestly might, because it truly altered my brain chemistry. I'm gonna have to sit with it for a little bit, but I don't know why more people aren't talking about this book. I don't think it's gonna be like everyone's cup of tea, but I totally see why it was on some people's favorites of the year list last year, because it is so good. It was so good. Oh my god, I'm like literally obsessed with this book. It was amazing. Everyone needs to go read it. I also started The Do-Over last night, and it's better than Accidentally Amy. The writing is definitely better. You can tell it's more like polished, but I feel like I can't judge it too harshly because it just is so YA, and I'm not the intended target audience, so it's not for me. But then again, there are plenty of YA books that I do love, but right now, so far, it's just feeling very YA, so we'll see. I feel like it could get better, but right now I'm just kind of like, I'm not really into it because it's very, very high school, and it's just not relatable for me right now. But we'll see. I'm gonna keep reading, and I will update you guys when I have more thoughts on The Do-Over.
Got me off of the ground. Sway for a minute, the plane moves side to side.
Hi guys, I finished The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, so I thought I would tell you my thoughts on this book and then just do a little reading recap to summarize all the books I read and conclude this vlog and tell you guys my final ratings for each of the books. So The Do-Over, my thoughts didn't really change. I know I only gave like one initial first impressions update, but this book was super short. It was less than 300 pages, so I flew through it pretty quickly. It was a fun time. There was one scene I really liked where Emily and Nick, our two main characters, have this day that they call the Day of No Consequences, because Emily is on this time loop. She feels like she can just like get away with anything now because the next day it'll be a clean slate and she's gonna have to relive everything and do it over again. So that day was super fun. They like went around the city doing different things and I enjoyed it, but overall, it was just super YA, and normally I like YA, but like I said, this just felt like geared toward an even younger audience. It felt super high school to me, so I didn't connect with the characters or the story that much. It was a fun time. I'm glad I read it for Valentine's Day week, but it's not something that's really gonna stick with me. So to conclude, the first book I read for this vlog was Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. This is a KU book, so I read it on my Kindle, and I really loved this book. I feel like there were a lot of storylines, there were a lot of things going on. It was very heavy, but it never felt like there was too much going on. I thought everything worked really well together. All the storylines came together really nicely. I really enjoyed the characters, and I thought the story and the characters had a lot of layers and depth to them. I do think the focus of the plot is on grief, and the romance aspect is more of a subplot. So just know that going into it. Make sure you check trigger warnings. Like I said, it's very heavy. But I did really love this book. I do think it was very long. It dragged in just a couple places. There were a few scenes that I was a little iffy on. I don't think this is a book that I'm going to think about every single day, but I did really love it. So I ended up giving Darling Venom 4.5 stars. The next book I read was The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. Literally, all you need to know going into this is that one man stands up 3 women on Valentine's Day. That's it. That's all you need to know. This book blew me away. I absolutely loved it. This book was completely not what I expected. It was slow to start and a little bit hard to get into, but after the first like 50 to 75 pages, it just got better and better, and I was so hooked by the story. The ending was absolutely incredible. It was genius. It brought everything together perfectly, and it was so smart. I did not see it coming at all. This book did give me that 5-star feeling, but I'm hesitant to give it 5 stars just because it did take me a little bit to get into and was kind of slow to start. So for now, I think I've settled on a 4.75 star rating for this book. If it ends up being something that I think about all the time, then I definitely think I could bump this up to a 5-star rating. It definitely is one I could potentially see being a favorite by the end of the year. So I just need to sit with it a little longer, but it is so close to a 5-star. But other than that, this book blew me away. and I am obsessed with it. And as you guys just heard, I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. This is a Groundhog Day type of plot where Emily is reliving Valentine's Day over and over, and on this Valentine's Day she catches her boyfriend cheating on her, and a bunch of other things go wrong in the process, so she's trying to fix her day to make it the perfect Valentine's Day and just work through a lot of the issues that she has on that day. And I liked this book. I thought it was a fun time. I liked Emily and Nick's little day of no consequences together, like I said, but again, it was just very YA. It felt catered to a much younger audience, so I clearly wasn't the intended target. I feel like I can't judge it too harshly because of that, but it was a fun time, just not something I personally connected with. So I decided to give this book 3.5 stars. And that is going to conclude this Valentine's Day week vlog of reading only romances. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm so happy that I generally liked all the books that I read for this vlog. I found a new favorite. So I would say this was a success. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I hope you had a very happy Valentine's Day week, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye guys.
One way ticket, I want you in my life. Feel of my